Hello everybody, it's me Ghost Critic with another instalment from the Marvel Ultimate Graphic Novel Collection we are getting over here in the UK, and this is the 6th book in the series. It is Thor, and it's Thor Reborn, reprinting the first 6 issues of Volume 3 of Thor. And as I said at the end of the last video that I've been doing on this series, I did collect this storyline in single issues. It was my kind of first real foray into the Thor universe. Still very aware of the character with his use in other titles, but as a single title character I'd never collected them. Some of people who have been watching my videos for a long time will have noticed on my 150 plus eBay haul, I did get a series of kind of 90s, 80s, 90s Thor comics, which I've read and thoroughly enjoyed. Doesn't really help in kind of reviewing this title, but hey. Now, at first look, this is kind of a good jumping on point for anyone who has never read a Thor comic before. Yes, something really huge and big had happened to finish off the last volume. Fortunately in here it does kind of catch you up at the present status quo, so as a new reader, and I was at the time anyway, it was kind of a good jumping on point. For those who aren't aware of what had just happened, Loki had caused this event called Ragnarok. Now, Ragnarok caused the destruction of Asgard and pretty much killed off all the gods within the Thor universe. I say died. What we get in this issue is that their spirits, I guess their souls, have merged themselves with normal human beings that are living on Earth. They're not aware of this because they're in this kind of hibernation sleep. So yeah, issue 1 we'll start off with, obviously. It is the kind of reawakening of Thor. It's set in this kind of limbo of void area, and it's a conversation between Thor and his kind of alter ego Donald Blake. Another kind of plot device which I'm not very much aware of, and where it actually came into being in the Thor history kind of universe. But the way I just see it, it's like his civilian guys, like Bruce Wayne is Batman, Clark Kent is Superman, that kind of deal. Tony Stark is Iron Man. So they're having this conversation within this void, and Donald Blake is saying, look, we need the gods back. Thor, we need you. You need to waken out of your hibernation and come back to Earth. You are needed. It's very nicely portrayed. You get these kind of big splash panels and not so much a history, but kind of like a one-shot panel of the life that led up to the point where he is now. His life as a god, his life as a human, the last days of Asgard, and this Ragnarok event. So that was a fun starting off issue. What we then go on to is that Donald Blake decides to take up residence in a kind of a small hick town in America. It's just out in the wilderness, kind of in the middle of nowhere. Everyone knows each other. And it is just a very small, well-knit community who all kind of, you know, get on with each other as such. and he decides to stay in this hotel, kind of come bed and breakfast type place. And Thor decides it's time to wake up the rest of his comrades, bring Asgard back, rebuild it as such. And there is just a great scene of Donald Blake turning himself into Thor and erasing Asgard. The book is very, very much about a kind of a belonging. Thor obviously is on his own. He's raised Asgard, but Asgard is empty. He's very lonely, not sure of his direction now. So the first 6 issues really see him going out into the world and looking for his comrades, kind of taking back the souls, the spirits of his comrades and bringing them back out of this hibernation, back to life. And we get obviously some of the big characters straight away. So we get like the kind of resurrection of Heimdall, Volstagg, who else was there? Fandral and Hogun, some of the big name characters that anyone who's ever read Thor before will remember. Now, as he's looking, I mean, my only problem, and this is kind of my problem with any comics that do this, is putting our superheroes in real life events, as in ours, what has happened in our history. And his first foray into finding the first of his comrades, Heimdall, he goes to New Orleans. Now, at the time of this being written, just before there was the devastating floods of New Orleans that it basically, you know, destroyed a whole part of New Orleans. And this is what I don't really like, but it does address very well in this particular issue. And it is the kind of Thor lands in New Orleans because this is where he can feel one of his comrades is at. And there is this addressing of how, in a world of superheroes, why weren't they there to stop it? Why weren't they there to build like a force barrier to stop this town from being flooded, to having lives devastated? And while it's addressed very well in here, it is just, for me, it's too close to reality. I prefer, you know, my comics to not necessarily be unbelievable, but removed from everyday reality. These are comic books. They don't live in our universe. As much as the stories within our comics have, you know, kind of real life settings, we recognise buildings, cities, towns, but I prefer it to just be slightly removed. Again, Donald Blake goes to Africa with the Doctors Without Boundaries kind of establishment, corporation, whatever you want to call it, to help with the sick and the injured and the wounded of the kind of the guerrilla soldier tactics that are going on within that country. So yeah, as enjoyable as they were, and they are done with subtlety, with tact. This isn't bashing you over the head, kind of moralising, and the story is very entertaining. But I could do without the reality of our world. This kind of happens, the whole 6 issues happens kind of just after Civil War, and I think it might have just been either just after Siege or as Siege was going on. So we have a kind of Iron Man guest appearance in one of the issues, and Thor obviously is not happy with Iron Man. Those who have read the issues surrounding that, Iron Man made a clone of Thor and made out that it was the real Thor. And there is a whole kind of chapter about you know, friendship and trying to get Thor to sign the, you know, the legislation act with the government, but obviously Thor's not having it. He's a god. Thor's a god. He doesn't sign up to some government initiative. No way. And he certainly puts Iron Man in his place. Both theoretically and physically. Great action sequence there. Yes, this book is still full of action, but what I love most about this series is not even so much like the godlike aspect of it all. It's actually the nice interludes with humanity. How, you know, Donald Blake reacts with this small town community, and how indeed Thor does as well, and how accepting this small town is of this huge floating city of Asgard, just kind of like a few miles down the road. And the characters, the human characters, are so endearing and likeable and real. It kind of warmed my heart, so to speak. Of course, there's a couple of twists and turns in here. You do kind of, while you're reading it, think, why is this taking him so long to resurrect all his comrades? He does one here, he does a few there, he does one there, which is addressed in the title, and it is a case of Thor's only really wanting to resurrect kind of the good element of the gods. He doesn't want to resurrect anyone particularly that was like an adversary of the Asgardians, so he's being very careful, but eventually he has to face facts that he can't do this. If he's going to resurrect one, he's going to have to resurrect all of them, and the last issue is like a big spectacular show off of Thor's mighty power. There are a few other little characters that are thrown in there. The Destroyer. People who have watched the film Thor will be more familiar and recognise the Destroyer as this kind of, you know, this huge baddie of the Asgardians. But there is an interesting little twist at who the Destroyer actually is. And again, another twist of Loki, Thor's stepbrother. When he kind of accidentally resurrects Loki, there is for a very different twist to the character of Loki, which kind of got addressed as the issues went on. The artwork by Olivier Coipel is very nice. The characters are all very well drawn. The emotional looks on their faces are very good. I do have a problem at times with him drawing Thor. It's certainly a very stylized, very kind of, it's almost Dolph Lundgren type look to him, kind of facially, especially this big kind of, I want to say fat face, and it does, it just looks really fat. But that's my only little kind of downside. But the rest of the artwork is just beautiful. It's very very superheroic and very action-packed, very detailed. It's just a really nicely presented set of books. So that's Thor done. Just quickly show you some little inside bits and the extras. Again, hopefully you can see that inside the front and the back. There's the montage. Story so far, just in case you wanted to catch up with where Thor had ended from the last volume. They reprinted, kind of smaller obviously, but cover art. You've got several different sketch variants and variants drawn by other people. You've got the Michael Turner variant cover and a zombie cover, and they reprint all those from the first 6 issues, so you've got all those. And also an Origins of Thor, hopefully you can see that, and a little 2-page spread about the artist, which was nice. And finally the further reading side of it. And looking, now I'm taking notice of this page, it looks like they're going to reprint the Siege storyline, the House of M storyline, and I think they've shown this one before, but they'll be reprinting another Thor compilation collection, Dan Jurgens' In Search of Gods. So there's certainly some books to be looking forward to when they eventually come out. I believe, if my memory serves me right, it's Winter Soldier, Captain America, next week. My thoughts on Captain America. It'll be interesting. I've not read it this time, so I'll be new to this. I hope you enjoyed Thor Reborn. I enjoyed it very much. I did stop buying Thor when they renumbered it back to its original numbering with issue 600, unfortunately. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching again. I'm glad you're all enjoying these videos, and I shall certainly be making some more. Bye bye.